I could tell you that in 2009, just 6 years ago, when your next speaker joined Genius Network, he was a total unknown, struggling financially, and he had just 117 followers on all of his social media sites combined. Yes, I could tell you that, but it wouldn't be true. What is true about Brendon Burchard is that he's a New York Times best-selling author, and his YouTube show is the most viewed straight-up self-help and personal development series in the history of YouTube. When it comes to the internet, no one knows more or does more to get followers and views than Brendon. He's also one of my top referrers, who I did not mention yesterday for Genius Network. He's a very close friend, and the title of his presentation is The Path to 50 Million Views and $50 Million. Please help me welcome a massive bundle of energy, creativity, and marketing savvy, Mr. Brendon Burchard.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Hey, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here and mostly just humbled because as much as Joe and I give each other shit all the time, he's one of my favorite people on the planet. And to be up here, especially with so many heroes and friends in the room, this means a lot every year. So I never take that for granted. Thanks, Joe. I thought I'd just start by sharing some Genius Network shares from this last year. I want to share 5 quick things that has happened because of the Genius Network in the last year. First, yesterday before Tony got on stage, I was blessed to interview him for about an hour for a new show I have coming out. And in that process, I wasn't disconnected from the fact that I met Tony because of someone in this room. Mike Koenig's, where you at, buddy? Mike, you in the room? Oh, he's getting some coffee? I met Tony because of Mike Koenig's. Then I thought about, oh, what else has happened? Well, this week, I've been kind of gone from my table, sorry, table 22. I've been gone a little bit because I'm doing the final approvals for an Oprah course that we're launching together next week. And so it's all week with her team, just looking at the course, looking at the course, looking at the course. I met Oprah and got that opportunity because I met Arianna Huffington, helped her with their book launch, helped her with their course launch on the Oprah Network, advised them through their courses and through their online marketing. And I got that opportunity because of Peter Diamandis. Is Peter in the room somewhere? Hey, Peter. Thanks, buddy. I think about right now, I get to stand here and hopefully be somewhat articulate as I teach you these 5 points that helped me hit 50 million views in the last 12 months. And I'm able to do that because of Dr. Daniel Amen, who you just saw up here. He treated me in 2011 when I had a brain injury. I'm here because, is Amen in the room? There you are. Dr. Daniel Amen. Would you give him a big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? I think about my favorite people in the world, 2 guys who I'm building a whole new empire with. They're Genius Network members. It's Dean Graziosi and Ethan Willis. We bought growth.com together, and we've just been crushing building out that infrastructure, getting that going. I would have never met them if it wasn't for Joe Polish, if it wasn't for Genius Network. Dean Graziosi, and somewhere is Ethan Willis as well. Give those guys a round of applause. Steve Sims, who was just up here, he arranged an amazing trip to Paris for us, where we were like hovering above Paris in helicopters, spinning around the Eiffel Tower, flying out into the countryside, landing at some amazing, beautiful, ridiculous castle where we had this private lunch and dinner at this amazing castle. I mean, it was just, the guy can arrange trips like you can't even fathom. And all I said, I want to have an unbelievable, ridiculous lifetime memory in Paris. And they took the rest of it. And we did 4 weeks there, 2 weeks in Bordeaux. One of the greatest experiences of my life because of Steve Sims, because of the Genius Network. So that's my ode to Joe Polish and the entire team. And the last person who also just gets a lot of love and praise, probably someone who doesn't get enough of that in this room, if she's here, is Eunice in the room? Would you guys give Eunice a big round of applause? I don't get to see Eunice and Joe enough, but they're family, and I love them. So thank you guys for being awesome to the team the entire time that you've been here. I got a little bit of time to share 5 big practices that I really believe were the essence of hitting 50 million views. But I'm also going to pick up the conversation from last year. So if you weren't here last year, one of my challenges to the group was this. I said, if you're not spending $1,000 a day on Facebook ads, You have not entered the modern era of marketing, period. And if you haven't started that work, it's time to start that work, because I want to give you the update. Okay, so that's what we do. We do even more than that. But since I stood on this stage last year, we have 4.5 million more followers on Facebook. Since I stood on the stage last year and said that, over $25 million of revenue has come in from just Facebook strategies alone. And so I hope that what I'm sharing with you isn't just conceptual, though some of these few points will be. It's go do this work. You can reach more people than you ever imagined in your entire lifetimes, but now is the time where you step away from your infrastructure, like Peter said yesterday, and you stand in that place of saying, what is happening now, and how can I get on it and ride that to the next level? Because one of the things I heard from a lot of Genius Network members was just like, well, you don't understand, Brendon, I got this infrastructure, so it's hard on me. So get rid of it, start again. Because building infrastructure now is not the problem. That's the easiest part of it now. It's these conversations we keep having in our mind that technology is too hard or marketing is too difficult that's probably keeping you back, even though this is an unbelievable room of incredible marketers. And I'm a student of a lot of people in this room, so I take it seriously when I say this. I don't say it to challenge you. I say it because you have a responsibility to reach more people with what you can do. And that begins by entering the modern era. That begins by entering that era where you're running ads, and you've got to stop looking at ads as spending money, as investment. Every dollar I spend on Facebook, I get $1.87 back within 90 days. So how much would you spend on Facebook? How much you spend? If they let me spend $1 million a day, which they won't, if they did, I'd do it right now because my message is that important to me. But I also told this last year, and one thing I kept hearing from a lot of people is, Brendon, I started trying this stuff, and you know, not a lot of people watch my videos. I started putting my stuff out there, and I only got 50 likes. I started doing some of the stuff. I started trying to do a YouTube show like you talked about, and you know, only 100 people watched it. That's going to lead me to my first point today. Maybe more philosophical, than the rest will be pretty tactical. And that's this. Honor and never forget the worth of one. Honor the worth of one. What do I mean by that? You know what people say all the time? Well, Brendon, only 100 people watched that. And I look at this room, and if we jumped off of here right now, and I just continued walking, and I divided on this side of the room versus this side of the room, these are 100 people over here. And what's happening is people are going, oh, I only got 100 views. Oh, only 50 people saw it. And I'm like, no. This guy's not worth it? That person's not worth it? That person's not worth it? I just talked to a guy, got about 4.5 million new views in the last couple months, and was frustrated with the new initiative he came out. Big YouTube star rolls out this new video, says, Brendon, only 1,000 people watched it. I said, only 1,000 people watched it? I grew up in a town, I don't know where you guys grew up. I grew up with 2,000 people in my town. That'd be half the town. That's a big win. For where I grew up, that's a big win. And I said, look, hey man, I know you're starting something new, and you are all in transition. How many of you feel like you're in some kind of transition in your career or your life, your business? Look around the room. Everybody here. We're all in some transition because the economy, the world is completely changing. But this person said only 1,000 people saw it, Brendon. And I thought, you know what? In your chase to scale, don't lose your soul. Don't lose the connection with the one person. My shows and my work, if they get effectiveness for any reason, it's because I'm talking to one person, and I know that person, and I care for that person, and it's not another 50 views, it's not another 1,000 likes. I deeply care about my audience. I listen to them, I watch them, I learn from them, I see what they go out and do. I know their struggles, I know their pain, and that makes the messaging resonate. If you've ever seen Dr. Daniel Amen on public television, he's talking to you. And that's why he's raised those unbelievable amounts of money for them, because he's talking right with you. And that's what you got to do. And a lot of the marketing that is struggling today is because people are trying to be so puffed up, and they're trying to address the masses like they're, some, saint on some big hill or something, instead of remembering that one-to-one conversation. I didn't start with hundreds of people in our seminars and thousands of people in our seminars. I started with 22 people in my seminars. I still talk to my people in my seminar rooms like I got 22 people there. It's not that I have to move the energy around the room now that there's thousands, but it's still 22. I'm still the guy talking to 22 people. So if you looked at your marketing, and if you listen to your team, in talking about scale, have they lost humanity? If you really listen to it, is it about traffic and conversions and numbers, and that's where it lies? Or is there something that is mission-driven, that is heart-driven? Because these 100 people over there, every one of them can go out and change the world dramatically. You have to honor the worth of one. If your marketing is not honoring the worth of one, that's why you're struggling. You see these big corporate email newsletters. You've seen them all, right? There's lots of columns. There's lots of ads in the email newsletter. There's lots of things that people can do and go click over here. Those completely fail today. Completely. Now, it's just about working and honoring the value of one. Get back to that. Don't lose your soul in the scale. People look at the numbers we were posting today, and they're like, oh my gosh, he must be so different. And I'm doing the same thing I've always done. Everyone's like, what's next for you, Brendon? Same thing. I write books, I do online courses, I do seminars. Then I do a lot of work to fill those things by giving out free education. That's never going to change. Some of the techniques and the tools will change, but I'm still talking to one. So I know this is for some of you like, yeah, you're preaching to choir, man. But start listening to your teams a little more closely. Start reading your emails a little more closely. Start challenging the people that you work with a little more closely. And if you're the star, if you're the thought leader, you're the person on there, get back into your heart before you're doing those videos, before you're doing those podcasts, because you're probably, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but you might just be in your content or in the thought of the sale more than you are in the heart and the soul of the person you're talking to. And I really believe you can get away with that for a couple 100,000 views. But you can't get 1 million views doing that. You can't get 10 million views, and you can't get 50 million views doing that. We got to feel your heart again. We got to feel your soul again. We got to put you back into this game, because in marketing, our number one problem is how often we focus on the numbers, and we numb out the people we're serving. Because what do we do now? It's so popular to say, oh gosh, my customers are so demanding. Oh my gosh, they're such a pain in the ass. Oh my gosh, all these negative comments. It's taken so much work now. And now your content creation isn't even joy anymore. Some people look at their content creation as the job and the work. I'm like, that's the self-expression and that's the service. If you don't love creating that content, different game, you got to go do something else. You got to get back in love with self-expression. Like expressing your heart and your humanity. And if you don't feel that when you're doing the work, it's okay. You're just never going to break through. You're not going to get that 10 million views. That 10 million views comes from that place. You got to get in there. It's so hard to do, especially for smart people, especially for us in this room. And I feel it too, because as soon as you get that 1 million views, you get guarded a little bit. People say bad things about you. They make judgments about you. They, as you heard Tony and Peter talk about yesterday, you get hooked. And it's easy to stay hooked, but you got to get back into that heart of it again. Everybody in this room, your next level of marketing is just getting back into your heart and making this about self-expression and service more than traffic and conversion. The traffic and conversion will come from that. It's just a big mind shift. It helped me a lot. I hope it helps you too. Second idea. If you could throw up slides, guys. Second idea. Develop a grid. Develop a grid. This is the big breakthrough financially online for me. Very, very simple. I'm going to show you my grid. You might have a different grid. But the grid tells how do people progress through your products and services. Okay, let me give you an example of the grid. This is one of mine. On the left column, you see brand ascension by competency. And on the rest, we're just going up an escalation of price. Now let me teach you how we work this grid in the business, and hopefully this will help you too. all I want you to do on the left-hand side of when you're coming up with your grid is you're just writing down your brands, right? Your product categories, your product names. Now, most people, they just create content and brands based on what they got, what's in their asset library, what is it that they know, what is it they have. I've never done that. I'm more of that strategic kind of thinker, I hope, where I go, okay, what's the customer's journey? What's their first aspiration? And what knowledge, skills, abilities, tools, and capabilities would they need to have that first aspiration met? And then I build a huge brand on that. Then I take another couple steps over and say, okay, once they've got that knowledge, skills, aspiration, competency developed, what's the next thing for them? And so on. So for example, in mine, the first aspiration is people might want to share their message with the world like I got to. So if you don't know my backstory, I'm a personal development guy and a high performance guy, and that's my whole career, that's my whole life. And I started doing good in personal development, and people started saying, how are you doing good in personal development? And I said, well, I'm doing this marketing stuff. And then I became equally known for the marketing stuff, and I started Experts Academy to teach people, thought leaders, how do you get your message out there and monetize it? So that was the beginning. It was like a good start. But once they go through that and they understand the industry, they understand how to do it, another skill they might need is speaking. So I started World's Greatest Speaker Training to train them to speak well on those videos, on those blog posts, on those stages that I recommend. Then they need to master very specific technical things. Really, you know, that minutia of creating a page and monetizing it, that started Total Product Blueprint. And then at some point, if you got all that stuff but you're still not doing it, we have to get you out of your own way, and I bring them into High Performance Academy. So I'm developing my brand assets by the customer's competency journey. Their competency journey. What is it they need to learn, master, and understand? So you think about two lines of growth real fast. Think about one growth is their competency, and the other line that often goes along with it is their aspirations. And so if I jump in your business, can I look at your product categories and say, oh, clearly you're developing for the customer's competencies. If you're not, the major question is, how are you developing your content? That's the major question. If it's not for the customer's competency development, for those thought leaders in the room, then where are you going? If you're not a thought leader and you just run a brick and mortar, okay, you still have a customer and they're still on this journey. Are you developing pillars in your business that strategically accelerate their ascension and success? If not, you're just throwing stuff at the wall, and scaling to the upper levels is going to be incredibly difficult. So then what you do is you say, okay, what if for each of these brands I have 3 offerings, or maybe 4? So each of the brands, so like Experts Academy, I have a low tier thing, like a book, then mid-tier online, then higher tier live seminars, and then higher tier from there mastermind or coaching as an example. Now, I know you know everyone's got that. Everyone knows this idea. Here's the question. Have you set that up to run automatically online with everybody who comes in your funnel ever? Have you set it up so that when they come in, the conversation sounds like that? It's related to their competency and their aspirations. Do they feel that arc in the messaging? Or are you just talking about the stupid video you shot? If that messaging lose that context of their competency and their aspiration, you're just kind of talking in the wind. There's no context. They can't get excited about you. And people I know, you can say, yeah, whatever, Brendon. I did a launch, I did $2 million. Yeah, add those 2 conversations, their competency and their aspirations, and watch it go to 4. That's your job. That messaging needs to be back in there, which we'll talk about. So all I did is for each brand that I've created, brand category within the business, I just created 3 new products for each one, and then the autoresponder sequence is smart, so it knows if they bought one or didn't, and introduces them to the next one for each brand. Then once they've gone through that brand and they bought or they didn't buy, I drop them into that next level of competency regardless. And we just move them through so they're getting an understanding. And that's why we have students around the world who are so committed, because they're always going to know, whatever I can do with Brendon, I'm going to go to another level. So do they see that with you? Does your audience say you're serving a need? Or they're going to go to another level with you? My argument is if they say you're serving a need and you're solving a problem, you're going to be a commodity in the next 12 months. 3 billion new people coming online as quick as they're going to be coming online in the next couple of years. It's like you're going to be a commodity. You won't be able to scale. Your scale comes from you scaling their aspirations and their competency. Raise your hands if you're still with me, or is this too much? Okay? That's where your scale comes from. Now, if your heart is there and you really love your students, all this content gets better. So one of my favorite questions to ask is, if I gave you my email today, how long do you talk to me for automatically? Like today, if I gave you my email, how many autoresponders do you have set up to talk to me? That answer tells me a lot about how much money you're making. Because what a lot of people do is they get the email, and then they just put them in a general news category or a general weekly newsletter or monthly, and then they sell them. But that funnel, in mine, I can't remember, I think it's like 190 weeks or something now. So if you enter my world now, you're going to be with me for a couple years automatically. And that sucked setting up. That sucked. You guys all know this. Creating those emails, the blog posts, the autoresponder sequence, that sucks, but that's the scale. You got to honor that struggle, that process. It's like, that's the work. Your job isn't to create content once in a while. Your job is to go home, stop everything, and say, if we created a strategic sequence of messaging and content for our customers today, not 10 years from now, not whatever developed, today, what would we create to help them go to the next level? And then you string it all together automatically, that it just happens. And that's how I take 17 weeks off every single year. It's just running. The thing is just running people through the grid. I also have a grid for my personal development side. That's my marketing side, which more of you are familiar with. And that's it. That's it. I'm just taking people through the grid. The reason you do a low cost, mid, and high isn't just because you're going for the ascension of the money. It's because that's where their competency lines often begin. The competency line might begin with the book, and then they go to another level. And some people say, well, this might not apply to me because I've got customers who they're not really interested in developing their competency. They're just buying a quick need. And I go, your job is to find out what is beyond the quick need. What's beyond the quick need, right? The iPhone isn't solving the quick need. We had flip phones for the quick need. They went so far beyond it into lifestyle, and that's important. Then when you have the grid set up, this is where everything changes. Because once I had this, probably got this really in line, I feel like really strong 3-4 years ago, then you run ads at this. You run ads into a funnel where people get a couple great videos from you, and then they're dropped into the grid. And here's the nice thing about a grid. You have something to measure. Each of those boxes you can now measure. A lot of people in their business, they don't have anything to measure, so they're just sending out newsletters. And they're like, Brendon, this stuff doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, but you're not measuring anything. The grid gives you the measurement points with the team to go, how's this doing? This box right here. What's up with it? And then you can move boxes around, you can change things, and it gives a big visual understanding of what you're doing, not only with your team, but frankly yourself. Because how many of you feel disorganized in your business sometimes? I haven't been disorganized in my business for a really long time because that's like the operating plan. Once you got the grid, you know your products and services, all you're doing is driving the traffic into that work. Okay. Master messaging. I think this is a large reason I was very, very blessed to get the call from the Oprah team and then finally meet her, is the messaging of what I say. And this is very, very, very important for you all. This would be the thing if you walked out of here this year and you went and actually implemented these very simple themes. I really believe anyone in this room, with how smart you already are and what you already have set up, you could all double or triple. And that's a big message, but let's test it. So if I jumped into your world and I looked at all your emails, your Facebook, your tweets, your Instagram, could I see you doing these things? Let me break down these acronyms. Okay, first, here's what you're promoting. NIER stands for this: new. I stands for interesting. E stands for effective. And the one everybody forgets, R stands for responsibility. These are your $1 million message themes. If I'm looking at your continual conversation with your autoresponders, your emails, your videos, and nothing feels new, I'm gone. If you're not trying to say things in interesting ways and sort of explaining things in counterintuitive ways or using metaphor or story to make even a simple commonsensical thing something I wanted to decide to be common practice in my life, not working. If you're not talking about effectiveness and why they need to be effective at what they're doing, but also by what you have and why it is effective or not effective, then you're in trouble. And then responsibility is a big one. Responsibility is the leadership messaging of what you do. Are you asking your audience to lead? I love listening to Peter because he's got this. We got a responsibility to save the planet. We got a responsibility to get man outside the planet. We got a responsibility to 10x our thinking. So how often do you challenge your audience and say, you have a responsibility to do this? You owe it to your family. When's the last time you said that? How many people feel like in the last month or two, you sent something out that literally said you owe it to your family? Would you raise your hands real quick to get recognized? The big room of marketing. How many people just spotted the problem? You owe it to your community. You owe it to your family. You owe it to yourself. If you're not saying those types of things, you're not imbuing responsibility in your messaging. If you're not imbuing responsibility in your messaging, you're never going to be perceived the market leader in your industry. Great leaders always talk about leadership, not by accident. That's why I study Robin Sharma. I know he's in this room. He's probably the one guy you guys got to make sure you study a lot of. You got to get in that leadership conversation, not from a hoity-toity, like a big look at me. You got to get there because it serves the world. And that's where I tie that first concept to. Your heart has to be in this. You have to say, look, you guys can change the world, and you owe it to your family to do it. You owe it to your family, you owe it to your team to start doing Facebook messages. As silly as that sounds, it still resonates, because if you're not scaling for your team, you're declining for your team. If you're letting your small business make you small-minded, your mission, your art, your family, it's going to suffer. Another idea, streamline with the end in mind. I didn't know my YouTube show was going to go so big, and all I did, I began with the end in mind. Thank you, Blake Covey. We all miss him. But what I did, I said, look at what everyone's doing. They're doing these podcasts. They're doing these crazy things. They got YouTube shows. They got Facebook things. They were doing so much. How many feel like you're doing so much? Like so much. You're overwhelmed. Okay. 100, 200, 300 liars. Good. You're doing so much. You got to streamline. I saw everyone do all this marketing. I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to sleep. I said, what's the one thing that I could do that would accomplish all the others? So I started doing a weekly video shoot. That weekly video shoot is spliced. The MP3 comes out of it. That MP3 becomes my podcast. The text out of that transcription, that becomes my posts on Facebook and on Instagram. That work from that video, that goes up on Huffington Post, that goes up on my blog, that goes out in my email newsletters. One action triggers and fills the rest. That's streamlining with the end in mind. The end in mind is the customer's competency development. How do they access that? I don't care where they access it. I want to be there. So I'm going to teach to their competency and their aspiration, and then I'm going to proliferate that through every platform that I can. And I know a lot of you build products and programs and services that help people do that, and that's awesome. Keep doing that. Last idea. Prioritize your energy and your art. A lot of people are saying, I'm so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. You don't have energy. You generate energy. Your energy that you feel now has been generated by what you've done the last 48 hours, what you've fed your body and your mind with. Your energetic level is not a victim mentality. You have created it by the way you move, the way you talk, the way that you eat, and it must be your priority. The one thing that helped all of my scale, but not just mine, I'm blessed to work with 10 of the top 50 YouTubers in the world now. Some of these folks have subscriber counts in the tens of millions on YouTube. You know what? Watch their videos. You know what's there? Enthusiasm. Their energy, because they work on that, they train for that, is so heightened. It's so real. You got to watch it. It's exciting. You have to watch it. So what are you putting out that people have to watch? Not because what you say, but because how you communicate it, your passion, your energy, your fire. And last, prioritize your art. You know, if you haven't heard the story, I released the Motivation Manifesto last year, and the publisher originally turned it down. Matter of fact, Simon Schuster had given a $2 million book deal for that. And then when I turned it in, they said, it doesn't make any sense. Why are you writing like 1776? This book is unpublishable. It's unmarketable. We can't do it. Change the tone, change the voice, change the way you wrote it, or we will not publish it. And I just had to look at it, and I had to think, is it true? Is there good feedback there? I ended up fighting for the art, because this to me is self-expression, not counts. It's not number of people. It's the self-expression, the service in the world. Fought for the book, partnered with Hay House. We put it out 30 weeks on the New York Times bestseller, and 2 weeks ago I got to sit down as Oprah held the book, opened up, read the table of contents, asked me questions because she'd read the book, she fell in love with it. That got to happen even though someone turned it down. Someone's been turning you down a long time, and you've been letting it hold you down because you weren't willing to fight for your art energetically. You got to get back into your art of all this. If you want to go to that next level, you already got the techniques and the tools. Everyone's giving it to you here. All I can say, get back in the energy of serving again. Connect with that. Really get into it. Don't forget your soul as you scale, and you will find that next level for yourself as marketers and business owners. Thanks, everybody, for your time. I appreciate it. You guys are awesome.